We made Tepache a little while ago and it was delicious, so now we're going to try it and make it stronger.
I just said, yes, man, right away, anything.
So literally 5 minutes ago, I just finished filming the first half of the Tepache video. If you didn't see it, I'll put a link for it right up here. So a quick little recap on what Tepache is. We take the rind of a pineapple and you throw in some raw sugar, some ginger and some cinnamon, and you let the wild yeast and the wild bacteria that's clinging to that fruit skin actually do the fermentation for you. You don't add any commercial yeast or anything. And then you get a very tasty, low alcohol content beverage that's around like 3 or 4%. Now, the problem with that is that I don't know what the alcohol tolerance is of the colony of stuff that's living on here. It could be 1%, 2%, or it could be 20. I don't know. I'm gonna make this fairly strong. I'm aiming for right around like 10%. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna add in 5 of these. These are 8 ounces a piece. It's about 2.5 pounds of sugar to 1.25 gallons of water. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna end up getting. Somewhere between 10 and 12% ABV is my guess, but we'll find that out in a minute. Since this is wild yeast and wild bacteria, it's actually gonna create a SCOBY. Some of the bacteria in there may be trying to steal the alcohol that's created and turn it into vinegar. We're just gonna let that happen. It's not gonna ferment for very long, basically until all the sugar's gone, and then we're gonna send it to the liquor fairy. Since I don't know the alcohol tolerance of the yeast, I may end up having to add some commercial yeast to it in order to keep it going so it ferments all the way out to dryness, but we'll check that along the way. So right now, let's just throw this together. I'm gonna take about 1 liter of boiling hot water to melt these guys. Brown sugar is really common for folks that are trying to make some rum, either using brown sugar or using molasses. The flavor of this is so different. It's well worth trying to get this stuff. So I'm gonna put an Amazon link down in the video description. It's a couple dollars, but it is so worth it. All right, so now that you got your bucket full of sugar and boiling hot water, make sure this cools down to room temperature before you do anything else. Otherwise, you're gonna cook the bacteria and yeast that's on your pineapple skin, and you don't wanna do that. So we'll let this guy chill out. All right, so now that we've got this all dissolved, it's still too hot, so I'm gonna add a little bit of ice in order to drop the temperature so it's safe enough for me to put my pineapple chunks in there. I'm gonna throw the whole pineapple in there. I'm not gonna cut the fruit out because I just ate a shit ton of pineapple. I'm afraid that if I eat too much, I'm gonna end up having a problem. One other thing we're gonna do is add some yeast nutrient. We're gonna go with FERMENTED K. If you've never used this stuff, I'm gonna put a link for it down in the video description in the recipe. I'm gonna use some pectic enzyme as well so that we can get that pineapple to break down all the cell walls in it to release all the juice so we can get any extra sugars and all the extra flavor. And now we're gonna throw in 2 cinnamon sticks. Alright, so I added enough water to bring this down to 1.075 at about 9.7% ABV if this thing should ferment all the way to dryness, but that's not taking into account the amount of sugar in the pineapple. How much is in the pineapple? I don't know, I don't care. Let's go ahead and lock this up, and we're gonna find out in the next couple of days if it'll ferment and then how far it will actually ferment. I'll see you in a minute. Here's what I noticed while this has been fermenting. It's all the way down to 1.000 and it's delicious. It's so good that right now you could just drink it as a strong Tepache. It's going to be close to a wine, so at about 10 to 11% ABV. And it's very good. It was so good that I decided to expand the recipe. So now I have 4 to 5 gallons worth. I did have to add some commercial yeast to it because it kind of crapped out at about 1.020. So it still had a considerable amount of sugar in it. But I think what happened was the alcohol tolerance of the wild yeast and wild bacteria just kind of hit its limit. And after that, the amount of alcohol becomes too toxic for that specific strain of yeast. And so it just craps out and it dies. Before that happened, when I noticed it was really starting to slow down, I went ahead and I added some commercial yeast to it in order to give it a boost so that it could finish out. But it still tastes very, very good. It doesn't taste, you know, like it's a non-wild product. It still has that kind of bacterial funk that you get from lactobacillus and acetobacter, so there's a little bit of tang to it, and it's got that unrefined kind of flavor. It's hard to describe if you've never fermented wild versus commercial. So it's got all those elements in it that I was really looking to capture, and I can't wait to see how it turns out. Let's get this stuff siphoned out, then the liquor fairy will do their magic. All right, so it is now time for the tasting of the Tepache Rum. And I've got about 650 mils. So keep in mind, this is about 3.5 gallons of wash that I did. I already went ahead and blended this and proofed it down to 54% because I do plan on aging it. The overwhelming smell is really Tepache. Even with kind of warming it up in the glass and getting a good snootful, you still get that dark sugar, the kind of Tepache funk, and the pineapple. It's rare that you make something that smells and tastes pretty identical, but this does. So I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy with that. Yes, sir. It just tastes like a kind of a funky pineapple-y rum. So I'm really happy with this stuff. I'm actually quite surprised with how close to the original product it actually tastes. Now that we've got this down to 54%, I'm going to take this charred white oak stave that I got from my buddy Ken over at Barrel Charwood Products. This one's soaked in my red, white, and blue whiskey. So it's already been soaked in bourbon for about 6 months, and now it's all dried out. So we're gonna use this one to kind of mimic the whole whiskey barrel aging that they do for rums in Jamaica, because this is nice and funky and fruity, and so I think it'll really lend itself to that process. So I'm gonna leave this in here for, I don't know, a month or two, and then we'll check it and see how it's doing. Now before I go, I want to say a huge thank you to all of my Patreons, all these folks down here. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for supporting this channel and keeping my lights on. I am grateful. Alright, so that is it. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit the like button because it really helps out the channel. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon right next to it so you get notified when I post new content. If you guys have any questions or suggestions about interesting stuff to do with Tepache or kombucha or whatever, post them down in the comment section down below. Alright, thanks for watching. Talk at you later.